The word kaiju is a Japanese word meaning strange creature, although it is most commonly used to describe giant monsters. Kaiju are extremely popular in most Japanese media, but it definitely has a global influence. The most popular kaiju of all time is the king of the monsters, Godzilla, who had his first film released in 1954. Ever since then, he had been influencing monster media for years. However, there lives another large and popular kaiju known for its destructive power and strength. That kaiju is the legendary Pokémon Groudon. These two powerful kaiju are very popular, but they are also known for their immense strength, intimidating looks, and their influence and popularity. Hello everyone, Dusty here. In this video I will be talking about two very powerful kaiju that are still very popular in today's media despite being been around for a long time. Those kaiju are Godzilla from the Godzilla franchise and Groudon from the Pokemon franchise. These two monsters have a lot in common, and I'll be seeing which one will come out on top in a fight. I'll be comparing their stats, such as strength, speed, durability, experience, and their abilities to determine which kaiju will come out on top. Before we begin, I want to lay out some things. First of all, I will be using the Monsterverse version of Godzilla for this video, since he's arguably one of the most popular versions of Godzilla, as well as being the most fun to pin against Groudon in my personal opinion. Secondly, this fight takes place in a hypothetical scenario where Groudon and Godzilla are the same height. Groudon is stupidly only 11 feet tall in his primal form, and I think it would be a lot cooler if they were the same size. So now that we got that out of the way, let's begin the analysis, starting with their backstories. Let's begin by talking about Groudon. Long before creation lived the mythical Pokemon Arceus. Arceus is a divine being that created all of existence. Arceus created powerful Pokemon to help create reality. One of those Pokemon was the legendary Pokemon, Groudon. Groudon was created to be the land's guardian, as well as to create continents in all the land masses. Groudon is a member of the Weather Trio, alongside Kyogre, the god of the seas, and Rayquaza, the god of the skies. Groudon would engage in a serious rivalry with Kyogre, and their battles would threaten to destroy the entire world by increasing their land masses and seas. It was only due to the power of Rayquaza that Groudon stayed in check. Groudon is an incredibly powerful force of nature, and it should not be taken lightly. There are many, many versions of Godzilla. But in the Monsterverse, Godzilla is an ancient primordial creature that has existed for millions of years. He was one of the first Titans, massive godlike beings that once ruled the earth long before humanity rose to dominance. After a long period of dormancy, Godzilla awakens in the 1950s due to nuclear testing, which accidentally stirred him and the other Titans. As the Titans woke up, Godzilla emerged as Earth's protector, maintaining a delicate balance between nature and civilization. He is a nuclear titan of monstrous proportions, and with his victory over King Ghidorah, the Titans finally recognized him as king and bowed before him. Now that you know who these characters are, let's begin with the main event. Like I said in the intro, I'll be comparing these characters' stats to come to the conclusion on which colossal monster will be crowned the true king, and which one will be slain. Let's begin with the first stat, their strength. Groudon, being a legendary, is one of the strongest Pokemon of all time. However, when compared to Pokemon like Mewtwo, Zygarde, Necrozma, Solgaleo, etc., Groudon is one of the weaker legendaries. That, however, does not make him weak by any standards. In one of Groudon's Pokédex entries, Groudon has been described as a mythological Pokemon that was able to raise the land masses and expand the continents. This is very consistent with the lore that stated that Groudon created all the land on Earth. Groudon also battles Kyogre on basically a daily basis, and Kyogre created all the water in the planet, and Groudon and Kyogre have been stated multiple times to be equals. This should get Groudon to multi-continental ranges of power. However, when Groudon goes through Primal Reversion and turns into Primal Groudon, he becomes much stronger. Primal Groudon is leagues above base Groudon in terms of strength, gaining 100 base stat total points. Just like in their base forms, Groudon and Kyogre are considered equals, and Primal Kyogre has been heavily implied to be capable of destroying the Grand Meteor Delta, which has been stated it would have destroyed the entire planet had it collided with it. This would get Groudon to planetary levels of power at his maximum primal form. Godzilla is one of the strongest kaiju to ever exist. Godzilla is strong enough to rip the heads off of King Ghidorah, throw around the Mutos, which the male one specifically weighed between 15,000 and 30,000 tons, and is also physically superior to Muto Prime, who can create shockwaves that generate country levels of energy. One of Godzilla's most popular feats is when he used his atomic breath to drill a hole through the earth. If you do the math by calculating the size of the hole compared to Godzilla, and also calculate the destructive force needed to destroy all that rock and dirt, this attack would yield country levels of power and potentially higher. Godzilla's best feat, however, would be the time he was able to power through the vortices of the Hollow Earth. Why is this impressive, you may ask? Well, the creators of the Monsterverse movies have stated multiple times that the vortices of the Hollow Earth can be compared to black holes. If taken literally, since, they're the creators of this story, this would give Godzilla star to potentially solar system levels of strength. So who is stronger? Godzilla would take the edge in strength pretty handily. While Groudon is a terraforming god that rivals the planet-busting Kyogre, Godzilla's vortices feat just overshadows Groudon by a pretty sizable margin. So Godzilla takes strength. Now let's talk about speed. Groudon at face value may not seem very fast, since he is a large, bulky Pokemon. However, he's a lot faster than he seems. I want to talk about the move Solar Beam, a grass-type move that grass and other types of Pokemon can use. This move uses the power of the sun to fire a beam of pure light at the opponent. Why does this matter? Well, Groudon is faster than Pokemon like Golem and the Reggie Trio, who have shown to be capable of dodging Solar Beam. As a bonus, Groudon can actually use Solar Beam himself, meaning this feat is pretty consistent. This would give Groudon FTL, or faster than light, travel and combat speeds. You can also argue that he would get FTL reaction speeds too. Godzilla, despite his large size, is capable of moving very fast. In the movie Godzilla King of the Monsters, we see Godzilla capable of running at speeds of 300 to 306.5 miles per hour, or 480 to 493 kilometers an hour. He was also capable of whipping his tail at speeds faster than sound in the 2014 movie. Overall, Godzilla should have around high hypersonic plus speeds. So Groudon would take the edge in speed due to his fairly consistent FTL speeds. Scaling to Solar Beam, Groudon is at least 2.19 million times faster than Godzilla, and he's potentially even faster than that. While Godzilla is not slow, especially for his size, the gap in speed between him and Groudon is far too wide for him to have a chance of taking the edge. Groudon takes speed. Now let's move on to durability. Groudon's durability should scale relative to its strength due to its fights against Kyogre and Primal Kyogre. So Groudon should have planetary levels of durability due to said feats of Kyogre being implied to destroying the Delta Meteor, and Kyogre and Groudon are equals according to the Pokédex, to the guidebooks, to the anime, to the lore, and they engage in battles with each other all the time. So Groudon should have planetary levels of durability. Godzilla is very tanky and also incredibly durable. He was able to take the full blast of Dr. Zerazawa's bomb exploding in his face at country levels of explosive power. He was also able to survive the Permian asteroid, which is an extinction level event, crashing right into him, and he walked it off. Godzilla was also able to take the full power of Ghidorah's gravity beams, which are stated to be 100 times stronger than the hurricanes he creates, which should also wield country to large country levels of power. Godzilla was also able to survive being dropped from the stratosphere by Ghidorah in the same movie. In Godzilla x Kong: New Empire, Godzilla was able to take Shimo's Frost Breath attack, which had been stated to be able to freeze over the entire planet and cause the next ice age. This should give Godzilla planetary levels of power. However, you can also get his durability to solar system if you want to use the vortices of the Hollow Earth feat I used earlier to upscale characters like Ghidorah and Shimo. So who's more durable? Godzilla would take the edge in durability pretty easily. Yes, Groudon takes hits from Planet Busters, but Godzilla takes hits from characters like Ghidorah and Shimo, who can reasonably be scaled to solar system level due to the Hollow Earth feat I've brought up a few times now. Groudon can take very strong blows, but Godzilla has survived way stronger attacks. Godzilla takes durability. Now let's talk about experience. It is really hard to determine how much experience Groudon truly has. It isn't directly stated how old Groudon truly is. However, it is also hinted that he is at least 1,000,000 years old, or millions of years old. The only battles we can reasonably assume Groudon was in was his fights against Kyogre. So Groudon hypothetically has millions of years of battle experience, although it can't be set in stone because we don't really know much more than that. And the only Pokemon he really truly battled was Kyogre and potentially Rayquaza. So yeah, Groudon doesn't have much going for him. Godzilla, however, has a lot more material to work with when determining combat experience. We know that Godzilla is around 240 million years old, and we see in cave paintings, as well as being stated directly, that Godzilla has been fighting in multiple kaiju wars. Godzilla has fought in the war against the Kong species, against Ghidorah, and a lot more. Godzilla has also fought Mechagodzilla, Scar King, Shimo, the Mutos, Scylla, Emuluk, Kong, the Ion Dragon, Tiamat, Murderfish, and others. Godzilla is also an expert close-range fighter in both water and on land, beating even kaiju like Kong. So yeah, Godzilla is incredibly experienced. Do I even have to say anything? Godzilla obviously takes the edge in this stat, because Groudon is basically featless when it comes to experience, besides just hypothetical statements, while Godzilla is a multiple-time war veteran who has lived for a very, very long time. Godzilla takes this with no contest. Before I come to the verdict on who wins, however, I need to talk about their abilities. Groudon, being a legendary Pokemon, has a lot of strong abilities. Groudon, being the god of the land, can manipulate, the land and weaponize it as powerful attacks. We see this in his signature move, Precipice Blades. Groudon can also blast hot flames with moves like Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Fire Punch, etc. Groudon also has healing with moves like Rest, and he can also increase his stats with moves like Bulk Up, Sword Stance, and Ancient Power. Groudon also has an instant KO move in Fissure, which we see in the anime works the same way in real-time battles as it does in the games, one-shotting its opponent if it lands. Groudon also has high levels of heat resistance since he lives underground and in hot magma, which reaches temperatures of 1600 degrees Celsius or 2900 degrees Fahrenheit. Overall, Groudon is stacked when it comes to abilities. Groudon has a lot of abilities as well. Godzilla, of course, has his iconic Atomic Breath, which reaches temperatures of 900,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 500,000 degrees Celsius. He can also fire this blast from his dorsals in an atomic blast, or pulse as people call it, one strong enough to eradicate the Muto Prime. He can absorb nuclear energy to strengthen himself, give himself more energy, or even to use as attacks. Godzilla can breathe underwater, which allows him to take his battles to the sea where he fights arguably better than on land. Godzilla also has a slight healing factor, although can't really be considered one, and it's definitely not as good as Godzilla's like Shinner -1. So Godzilla has a lot of powerful abilities. So who wins? This fight is far closer than it might seem. Godzilla is stronger, more durable, and vastly more experienced. But Groudon holds two critical advantages: speed and hacks. Groudon simply moves way too fast for Godzilla to reliably land his atomic breath, atomic pulse, or even react to. And while Godzilla only needs one clean hit to win, that opportunity is incredibly difficult for him to create. Groudon may not match Godzilla in raw power, but he doesn't really need to. With moves like Fissure, Groudon has a direct way to bypass Godzilla's durability entirely. And Godzilla has not shown resistance to that kind of ability, and like I said earlier, as we see in the anime, Fissure works the exact same in real-time battles as in the games, meaning if Groudon lands it, you are getting one shot. And since Godzilla can't really fly, he has no way to reliably avoid it for a long time. Combined with Groudon's ability to boost his stats and manipulate the battlefield itself, he can survive long enough to force Godzilla into a constant defensive struggle. Godzilla absolutely has win conditions, and you can make an argument that he wins. For example, a direct hit from his atomic breath would likely obliterate even Primal Groudon, since it's hotter than anything Primal Groudon has shown to resist, and it also wields a lot more destructive power than anything Groudon has shown to be able to survive. And if he ever lands a single blow with any of his atomic attacks, even potentially just physical, he ends the fight immediately. But more often than not, the massive speed gap and constant terrain manipulation prevents that moment from happening. So while in the end Godzilla dominates in raw stats, Groudon's 2.19 million times faster than Godzilla is just too wide of a gap for Godzilla to even react to Groudon. It also helps that Groudon has much better battlefield control and has that one-shot KO move in Fissure. So I feel like Godzilla would be slowly overwhelmed by all of these abilities Groudon can throw at him. And this fight is not a stomp by any means. But after a long and brutal fight, Groudon emerges victorious with extreme difficulty, making him the new king of the monsters. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you disagree with anything I said, make sure to comment down below. I like reading all of your comments so I can see how to better improve my videos. If you want to request a battle too, you can also comment that down below. Anyways, this is Dusty, signing off. Have a wonderful day.